how do we fight this? Well, the solution is, I'm going to borrow a term from the world of consulting from McKinsey & Company. The solution has become T-shaped, right? And what T-shaped means is that you have your deep level of expertise, but you also keep a broad working knowledge of a lot of other areas. And what we find is a lot of the most groundbreaking innovations, the disruptive innovations, the ones that get magazine articles written about them, most often they happen when somebody takes their deep expertise to a new area or notice something out there and decide to bring it in here, to become T-shaped. Now the world will form you to become like a capital letter I, right? To just grow in your expertise. So I mean, what happens? We give people at undergraduate level, we give them a broad liberal arts education, but we decide they have to take a major, so they get an emphasis in one area. And then if they want to continue on in that area and grow in their expertise, they get a master's degree or a doctorate, and all of these things are actually learning more and more about increasingly little, right? I learned this when I went through my own doctoral program, that the way to get done quickly is to be the world's foremost expert in this teeny little thing, right? Because then the number of people who can judge your dissertation poorly is really small. So you become the foremost expert in this really teeny thing, and that's great if that's your goal, but when it comes to creativity and innovation, we have to keep this working knowledge of it. We have to be like, my favorite example of this is a man named Paul Erdos. Do I have any I had one physicist. Do I have any mathematicians in the room? No, okay, that's all right. If I did, right, then now we can make fun of them. No, I'm just kidding. If I did, right, I'll tell you about this interesting thing in mathematics called the Erdos number. Has anyone ever heard of the Erdos number? So the Erdos number is this fascinating thing. Every mathematician who publishes papers has an Erdos number. And what it is, it's a number that signifies how close you were to the work of Paul Erdos. If you publish a paper with Paul, you have an Erdos number of 1. You published a paper with someone who published a paper, it's Erdos number of 2. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but for nerds. And why does it happen? Right? It happens because Paul Erdos published more peer-reviewed journal articles and mathematical proofs than any other person we know of. We lost count around 1,500. Could have had more. We just lost count. We couldn't track it. We just stopped paying attention to it. And why? Paul was an intellectual nomad. The title of his biography is My Brain is Open, which was the thing that he would say to people when he wanted to collaborate with them. He would read their paper in this little subdomain within mathematics, and he'd go, that's interesting, I want to learn more about that. And he'd show up at their office, or sometimes their house, and he would say, my brain is open, which basically meant, let's work together. They would stay for 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, and they would collaborate. Paul would teach him or her what he knew. They would reciprocate, and then he would go off again. And he'd become this sort of intellectual nomad. Now, most of us, I get it, we have families, mortgages. Actually, maybe the mortgage is the reason we can't move. Maybe it's the family, whatever. We can't be that intellectual nomad, but we can still fight the forces that want to make us an I and become T. Right? One of the best ways is literally things like today. How many of you followed instructions and are sitting near people who don't work in your department? You've taken the... What's going on with this table? Everybody else raised their hand. You've taken the first steps towards becoming T-shaped, right? Because you're having conversations with people you don't normally talk to. And there's an idea, a cross-pollination, a thing that can happen. Keep doing that. One of the other things, and this is more solitary practice, there's still time. This is a more solitary practice, is I always tell people if you go to a bookstore, if you can find one, you go to a bookstore, and along usually the side wall or the back wall, there's a big rack of what? Magazines. And they're all organized in subject matter. And you know the one you like to go to, right? Some of you, it's the home and gardening one, or it's the sports one, or it's the business one. Go to a bookstore, go to the magazine rack, and don't go to your section, but grab one from each other section, and then just flip through and read. Right? You're not looking for anything. You're not trying to solve your problem. You're just trying to get a working knowledge of stuff you've either forgotten about or ignored, right? So these are two really, really good ways to keep going. One is solitary in your realm of study, just keep studying stuff. The second, and arguably the better one, is to keep interacting with people who are not in your department or are not in your office or not people you see every day, and keep asking them questions and letting them keep asking you questions. So this doesn't stop at lunch today. Right?